I pretty much brainwashed Will into thinking that this was a good idea. We took a road trip and we lived out of our rental car. And like when we got home, I was just obsessed with the idea of selling all of our stuff and living in the van. And Will was not about it, but I never gave up on my dream. And then one day he was like, I have this idea. What if we just like buy a bus and convert it into a house? And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea.
So Kristen wanted a tiny house. The tiny house wasn't realistic, and so I liked the bus route, and
that was our compromise.
That was our compromise. And
this is season 3 of the Rewilding Parenthood podcast. We have families on the road, and this week we're highlighting number 1 bus, who have been on the road this past year, more or less the same amount of time that we have. And Will and Kristen and their daughter Rome just had an incredible experience so far and have just an amazing bus for their family of 3. I think the Blue Jay 28 foot is really, I think theirs is 28 or it's 31, is really, it's just an incredible setup. And these guys have really made it their own. Will and Kristen are both digital media specialists. Will does a lot of editing and videography, which you can check out on their YouTube channel, which is always full of helpful tips and really illustrates how they live on the road. And Kristen does a ton of blogging and obviously is a big part of the YouTube channel as well. So really excited to have these guys this week. We just talked to both of them as they were up in Nova Scotia last summer. But, it really gives you a sense of what life on a Skoolie is like, how to manage the work, and some of the benefits of leading this lifestyle. So I know these guys are back on the road now. They're heading out west with their eyes set on heading up to Alaska this summer. So keep an eye out for number 1 bus, and I hope you enjoy the show this week. Hey, Will.
Yo.
How you doing?
Good. Where are you guys at right now?
We are in Bend, Oregon.
Oh, nice.
How about you?
We actually just made it down to New Jersey.
How did you find Canada? We were also up in Canada on Vancouver Island for 3 weeks, and it felt a bit jarring crossing the border again back into the States.
I know, right? It's funny. It's always like there's all those like crazy signs. It's so crazy to me that like, for example, like CBD is so illegal there, but it's like the vice versa going across the border now, because that was what we got hammered on, like CBD versus marijuana, which is so funny. But no, it was great. Like we love Canada. I mean, we had such a good time up in Nova Scotia. We met so many rad people, and of course, like after we left, we really like a lot of people reached out to us after we left, and that's always how it works. So
right, to say, come and stay at my farm, or I've got 1,000 acres on the Cape Breton, come and stay as long as you want.
I know, right? We did actually a phone interview with CBC News and they did like a huge write-up on us, which is actually like it did really well for us. But we got to meet a lot of people through that, and unfortunately, that's where I'm like, dang, I wish we were still up in that area, because it's that's probably one of our favorite places we've ever been. And I saw you posted that photo of Meat Cove the other day. That's like, we camped out there for like 2 days, not even on Meat Cove, but just off the side of the road right there, because Meat Cove was taken, and we actually got a better spot off the dirt road going in.
Nice. Well, Meat Cove would have been super challenging for the bus. It's just like this big, it would have been terrifying to sleep there, I imagine.
Yeah. No, we made it all the way out to the end. We got the chowder at the end and hung out there. But no, we actually just ended up camping on the side of the road on the way back out. But yeah, I mean, talk about them putting the bus to the test of hills and dirt roads and vibrating to see if anything falls off. That was a pretty good test.
Yeah, for sure. And how about the map I sent? Did you check out Dingwall? That beach kind of right, I don't know, maybe 50 miles before Meat Cove?
We went to, I think, one of those. I think that's what it was, Kristen, wasn't it?
We didn't stop at Inglenosh.
Oh, yeah, we didn't stop at Inglenosh. We drove through Inglenosh then, yeah.
Hey, Kristen, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to talk to you. I feel like, I can't remember if we talked in the past or not.
Yeah, I don't think, she wasn't at the Georgia, she wasn't at the Macon one, yeah. That was just me and my dad. Yes, we haven't actually met Colin yet. We'll just have to plan another meetup sometime.
Yeah, come take a break down in Mexico.
I know, right? I know Kristen's on it for sure. So that's where we want to go too. So
you guys speak Spanish?
My wife's from Argentina, so she's got that dialed. And this is the ultimate test for me to get my Spanish sorted. If I'm not speaking Spanish by like this time next year, you can just like punch me in the stomach.
Oh, that's hilarious.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard any of the podcasts, but yeah, super excited to talk to you guys and, really want to get to know, what drove you to this decision and then like how it's played out and anything you've learned so far as a means to inspire other people if they're considering this type of lifestyle, how they might go about it and like why they might go about it.
Well, I'll let Kristen jump into that because she's kind of the one that started this whole process.
So let's see. How we made the decision is I pretty much brainwashed Will into thinking that this was a good idea. We took a road trip in 2015 up to California coast, and we lived out of our rental car. And like when we got home, I was just obsessed with the idea of selling all of our stuff and living in the van. And Will was not about it. He was like, that's not realistic. We had too much stuff. What are we going to do with all of our stuff? And we both had jobs at the time that we had to go to, 9 to 5 and all that fun stuff. But I never gave up on my dream, so I would just keep on dropping little hints. Like when we were looking to buy a house, we'd be like, well, we could just buy a van and convert it into a house. And we started traveling a lot for work, and we started both being able to work from home. And when we would get back to our house, we kind of realized that the only thing we really missed was our dog and our bed. And we didn't have a baby at that time. And then one day Will was working on a really big project, and he came in the room. He was all stressed out, and he was like, I have this idea. What if when I'm done with this video project, we just like buy a bus and convert it into a house? And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. We should totally do that.
So to back that up, though, Kristen wasn't on the whole bus theme exactly. She wanted a tiny house.
Or I wanted a van first.
A van and a tiny house, but the tiny house wasn't realistic because I was like, we're going to buy this trailer and build out this house, and you got to buy a $50,000 truck. And so I liked the bus route, and
that was our compromise.
That was our compromise, and here we are.
And so can you tell me a little bit more about like what the other options were for you guys? I imagine you were probably late 20s thinking about having a family, so you wanted a more stable household, I'd imagine, right?
Well, so we actually, funny enough, just planned on not having kids and just traveling and kind of doing our own thing and whatnot. And when we actually bought the bus, we actually planned on just not having kids. And then once we actually started building out the first piece of the inside of the bus, found out that we were having a kid.
Yeah, Rome's bed area originally was for our dog.
Yeah.
Now he has to sleep in the bed with us, so Rome has her own sleep area.
But to back that up is we were trying to buy a house, and I have my own business. So in Florida, you have to have that business established for at least a minimum of 2 years. It doesn't matter how much income you can show or prove. It has to be established for 2 years to even get like a loan on a house. And so we couldn't really get approved without putting, like 50% of the deposit of the house down. So that was a huge turnoff for us to not buy a house. And then that's when we really started looking for, a bus and like, hey, let's just do this and then we'll just figure it out in the long run.
I think we picked the bus because we have a bigger dog, and so we wanted that space for him too. But it's definitely, there are families in vans and there are families in buses, and we've got a family with 5 kids in a bus. So it's just a matter of if you really want to do it, you'll figure out what works for you and you'll make it work.
Yeah, exactly. I recommend school buses to families all the time that meet us and are curious and really want to test this lifestyle out. And because of all, people like you and everybody we've met living in school buses and the price of them and availability in the States, I recommend that, almost every week.
Yeah, we love it. It's the perfect size for us. And we have a smaller bus, too. It's not a short bus, but it's not a big one. It's like in between.
I think it's perfect. I think if I were to have a school bus, I would want your size flat nose. But yeah, maybe you can give us a rundown of what the bus is exactly. And, I don't want to go fully into the conversion process. And if you're curious, you can check Will and Kristen out on YouTube at Number One Bus. We'll have all this stuff at the end of the call, but they have some great videos about how they built it out, where they got it, and some of the process. But just give us a sense of where you found it, when you got it home, what the build out was like, and if somebody was to do this for themselves, what they should be prepared for?
Yeah, so we definitely did our fair share of looking at buses, everything from Craigslist to Facebook to Bus Life. I think we got this one from Bus Life Adventure, I think is where we found this as a listing. But you definitely got to try to find the right bus. You want to find one that doesn't have rust and all that. So we went through everything, found the right bus, and it was out in Utah. This was actually formerly a U.S. Air Force bus. So it had all the maintenance records. It was well kept, no rust, everything we were looking for. So that's how we found the bus. It's a 1992 originally, and it's 28 feet long. And then we actually extended the bumper and put a motorcycle in the back. So now it's 31 feet. But yeah, I mean, we have 24 feet of living space on the inside, about 170 square feet. But we have it all. I mean, we have bathroom, shower, kitchen, workspace, baby area, and a queen-size bed in the back. So it took us a year and a half to build out the bus completely.
And what was that like as Kristen, you were pregnant and, the due date was approaching, and how did you guys feel about having this big lifestyle change in the midst of the unknowns of bringing your first child into the world?
It was, well, I obviously stopped helping with the build-out process because they were building in Florida in the middle of summer while I was 5-6 months pregnant, so I was not going to be doing that anymore. But I was just super excited because we were downsizing a lot, and so when we made sure I didn't have a baby shower, I told people not to buy us gifts. And people don't listen, but we didn't have a lot of baby stuff because I made it very clear, we're moving on to a bus, don't get us a lot of baby stuff. And we made it work. It was an exciting time, but we also were in our house for the first 6 months of Realm's life. So I think that was great because we got that whole adjusting period to be have space and figure out baby sleep and all that fun stuff that comes along with a newborn. And yeah, I think it really, I don't know, I don't have anything to compare it to, so it was just my normal at the time, and it worked out for us.
Yeah, I think, when we go through these moments, the last podcast that we just released were a family they were building out a Unimog with maybe 3 and 4 year olds. And working, the guy was a hand surgeon. Renata was studying full-time at college. And, I just put myself in my own experience and then think about theirs and think about, yours, and just the pressure that can kind of build up for trying to complete this project on time. Maybe it feels like you're paying, you have all these new expenses with the bus, but you're also still paying rent. And then there's a lot of unknowns, whether you're even going to like it, how it's going to work. And then you're bringing a kid on board. It's there's a lot of stress, I could imagine. And, I don't think many people can understand what that feels like unless they've gone through some kind of process like that.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I feel like I didn't feel a lot of stress with it, but I was just so ready to live this life. I've wanted it for 4 years. I've just been pushing for it. So I was just ready. If anything, I was like, why is it taking me so long to build the bus? Finish it up.
I think you sound like Sophie. Come on, hurry up, guys. Let's just make this happen.
Yeah.
I know. And then this is how we kind of moved on the bus. The place we were renting got sold. And I think I was telling you this, Colin, when I met you. We had to be out fast. So we had to bring the bus outside of our house and just try to mass finish it. So Kristen's just hovering over top of us the whole time, all right, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet?
So, flashing out here.
But yeah, so when we moved in on April 1st. But yeah, we actually had a deadline. So that made it a little stressful because we knew we had to be in the bus because we didn't have anywhere else to go. We couldn't draw it out and do all the detail, which actually was probably good because then it sped up the process and made us finish it.
Yeah, I can tell by your aesthetic and your work and all the time that you put in there, Will, and Kristen, sorry, both of you, that you want to do things right and have the time to be able to do it and not necessarily just have a deadline. And
yeah, exactly. And that's I built the bus out with my dad, and that's kind of how my dad's always been, is do it the right way so you don't have to go rework things. So that's kind of it's good and bad because me and my dad will also spend 2 hours on the smallest little detail things, but in the long run, it makes the stuff last worthwhile.
Absolutely. And there's no better way to test your design except by taking it out on the road and seeing how quickly it fails.
Exactly. That is the truth. And that's funny that we were even talking about Meat Cove in Nova Scotia earlier, because the whole time I was thinking, I was like, man, if there's a road to drive on after you build a rig out, this is the one to put everything to the test.
I'm glad you survived, and I'm glad you got to see it. And so, Will, that must have been a really cool process to do this project with your dad. Can you tell us what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, me and my dad have always been really close, and, we built motorcycles and worked on cars and kind of always had projects, per se, from everything, from woodworking stuff. So this was obviously a big project to take on. And, I've talked about this with him multiple times. Like, if we spent hundreds of hours on this bus together, just thinking out stuff, and 100% of pretty much everything in the bus has to be customized. So you really have to work together, figure out processes. And realistically, like, if the bus never actually even moved and we never even lived in it after all that work, it would still be worth it, because the time that we got to spend is just priceless together. And I think the hard part for my dad, the thing that he struggled with, which they just came and visited recently, was, he was helping us build a bus that was going to take us away from them. He has a new little granddaughter that my parents are both obsessed with. But so I think it was kind of a struggle for him at the end. I think he was trying to slow down, because he was like, wait, I'm helping build this unit that's going to take my family away from me. So, yeah. But no, it's awesome. I mean, the fact that we got to do that together,
Yeah, I remember meeting both of you for the first time in Georgia, and he said the same thing, that he just felt so honored to be able to spend that time with you, especially later on in life when you became a dad, and your perspective changes a little bit, and you can appreciate what your parents and he's done for you. So that's
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about Rome and what her, I imagine she's kind of talking and walking now, but what's it like living on the bus with your daughter?
It's cool. She's not walking yet, but she is climbing up on everything. I think she'll be walking any day now. And we just celebrated her first birthday in the bus, so that was cool. We moved onto the bus when she was 6 months old, and so babies change a lot in that from 6 months to a year. They go through all these mental milestones, and it's been really fun to show her the world and watch her just kind of take it all in and do all these things that most babies probably don't ever get a chance to do, and just see the world through her eyes. It makes traveling a lot more interesting, actually, because they just are so curious about everything. And as far as living on the bus with her, like I said, we don't really have much else to compare it to. We were in the house for 6 months, and we were downsizing that whole time. So this is our life, and we love it, and it works out perfectly for us. And she has got plenty of room. We have a really open floor plan in here, so she has plenty of room to play inside, but we do try to spend a lot of time outside, either letting her crawl around in the grass or hiking or going on some type of adventure. I really don't think we could have gotten a better baby for this kind of lifestyle, because she's great in the car seat, and she loves to go hiking, and she loves being in her stroller and going new places. So we really hit the jackpot.
That's awesome. And Kristen, I saw I was actually curious about this because of Will's workflow a few weeks ago. He was just in Hawaii, so you were alone with Rome for a week. What was that like?
So that's not the first time Will has left this year. He's actually been traveling a lot for work this year, which is ironic because last year he barely traveled at all. But it's not bad when he's not here. The only thing is we have to be in, we try to find somewhere safe, or that we're not going to have to be worried about someone being like, hey, you can't be here. So we usually get a campground when he leaves, or stay at friends and families if we're near them. But this time we weren't near anybody, so we were at a campground in upstate New York. And there was no service there, which made it there was barely any service. I had to go on our rooftop desk thing to get 2 bars of crappy service. And I actually still work full time too. So That's probably the hardest part when Will is not around, because I have to basically try to get all my work done while Rome is napping or sleeping. But other than that, I mean, I feel like I was used to him leaving and me being alone with Rome. Like when we lived in the house, he had to travel a couple of times for work, and also while I was pregnant. But I think one of the challenges is if you're not with friends and family, you don't have that help with a baby. But I've gone pretty good at just getting it all done by myself, I guess, making it work.
She killed it. She had to move the bus on this last one, so that was a new thing that she's had to do, and she did a good job.
Yeah,
and I always felt really safe in the bus, and like I know everything about how it works, and so it just feels like home. So it just feels like my husband's going on a work trip and I'm at home.
And that's really the most important thing when I fly out of town. That's why I try to schedule everything ahead of time, is because I just want to make sure it's worth the money to just have them in a campground and know that they're safe. Because it's one thing to be off grid, you know, to leave her off grid somewhere, because then that's always going to drive me crazy while I'm traveling, because then if something happens, you know, she's got to deal with that. So we just get a campground and she can plug in, and that way she's safe.
I think that's super smart, and we're together a lot more, so we don't spend much time apart, but I would be doing the same thing if I was in your guys' shoes. So can you give us a sense of what life's like on the road? You know, anything from, you know, what your routines are, what works as a family, and then, you know, how you make it happen. I think most people are curious, like, where do you sleep at night? How do you do that?
Yeah, so we don't ever know where we're going to stay the next night, unfortunately.
We're really bad. Like, we don't really plan things out in advance. Like, right now we have a spot, we're at a friend's house, so but we have no clue where we're going.
Typically, I mean, we'll just kind of wing it per se. I know we know we have to be somewhere typically like a month out, so we'll slowly just make our way. But for places to stay, we use a couple apps. Like iOverlander is a great app that we use. We also are Harvest Host sometimes, because we always like to go to little farmers markets, and the way Harvest Host works. That's Rome telling us about how she likes to stay at certain places. So we kind of really just wing it, but we built the bus so that we can stay off grid. So, you know, sometimes it's not always pretty. We stay at Walmart. You know, that's a part of life, but Walmarts are great because you can go get stuff late at night if you need to. And, you know, it's kind of just a part of the lifestyle. You know, we like to go plan out state parks and go visit state parks. They're always cheap places to stay, and they're always good family hikes as well inside there. But that's kind of we don't really have a set schedule on what we
just kind of think we want to go to Nova Scotia, so let's get there.
And it took us 6 months to get there. So.
That'll happen when you're in a bus. And then what about work? So we've talked a little bit. You guys have alluded to what you do, but can you just frame that up, and then how that transition has been to manage your workflow on the bus? Yeah.
So we actually in the bus we have like a permanent Wi-Fi setup, so we actually do have internet all the time. And during the weekdays, and I kind of work 24/7. That's just kind of what I do. But for the most part, like, we try to set it up during the week. So we'll work Monday through Friday during the days. We'll find like a good spot. And then typically in the afternoons, we'll go hike or camp around. But yeah, like, I have my desk. Kristen has a desk up front. And then we got like a little, you know, we have an area that we've been able to rope off for Rome to play in. She'll make a mess while we work and have a good time. So it's actually been, working on the road hasn't been a hassle at all. If anything, it's been more convenient.
Well, and so I am a communications manager, and I do the internal communications for Second Home Resort and their social media and stuff also, and then Will.
And then I own a creative company as a background, so that I do like video production, you know, even marketing, hosting online calls and stuff for some corporate companies. So it's all of our work is able, as long as we have good internet, we can really get everything done.
That's awesome. I think that's the dream for everyone. So do you have any tips or advice for people that are sitting there wondering like how they can parlay their skill set to be able to work online? Like, I know everybody's a bit different, but how did you guys feel like you were able to make the jump to be able to work full-time remote?
I I think that it's not an overnight process, so this is something that we slowly transitioned into. But I always tell people, like, what's like your hobby? Is there a way that you can make money off of it? Because that's what video was for Will. It was a hobby, and then he started slowly figuring out a way to make money off of it. And another thing I always tell people, because people ask me this question, like, do you have any advice how I can do it? We started with this little website called Fiverr.com, and you can sell your services on there, and that's a great way to, like, build up your confidence and your ability to, like, sell yourself to people. And they do everything on there. You can sell. I used to sell pictures. I used to go to sunrise in the morning when we lived at the beach and write messages in the sand and take a picture of it, and that was, like, how I started, like, I can figure out ways to, like, make money from.
There's a lot of different ways to make money from the road, for sure. And like Kristen was saying, for video stuff, for me, I worked a full-time job, and video stuff, I didn't go to school for it. I went to YouTube University, pretty much. I was just watching videos on how to, and to better that. So I would do that stuff late at night after I got off work, because I had to put in that extra time to learn, and then kind of just slowly putting the work out there and picking up clients. And then one thing happens, after another, and it ended up becoming a full-time thing. So like the part-time job that I was doing ended up becoming like a full-time thing, and it allowed us to be remote and not have to actually go to a 9-to-5, which is obviously the dream, Now having a little girl and being able to watch her grow up, and we're both here, is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're clearly very aware of the difference of what that may be like if you weren't here. I mean, you both would probably have an office, and you wouldn't have that time together. And has that been a really big driver? Was that a driver for you to, I guess we kind of already talked about this, you were moving into the bus anyway, but has that been like a discovery that you've found so far on the road?
Yeah, like, we definitely don't want to ever give up this sort of lifestyle. So I think
we're definitely spoiled.
Yeah, living tiny, and then, like, realizing that you don't need all the stuff, and you don't have to keep up with the Joneses, and you don't need the newest TV and the newest iPhone and all that stuff. It definitely helps make this lifestyle more possible, because you're not spending all your money on things that you don't actually really need. Yeah. And so we think we'll always, now that we've had this, we'll always be living some kind of tiny. If it's not in a bus, it'll be in a boat or
container house. That's the next thing,
or something like that.
That's awesome. And do you have any? I saw one of your recent tips for families living on the road. We'll put some of these links in the show notes. But if a family was thinking about doing it, do you have any tips that you could share of what you've learned on the road in the last 6 months or so?
For me, I would say with a baby, it's know your limits. Like we are used to, before we had Rome, we would do crazy adventures. We'd go all day long and hop over fences and do kinds of crazy things. But with a baby, you just have to know, like, okay, it's not going to be an enjoyable time if we have her skip both of her naps today and we go on this long adventure. So we try to, like, time things accordingly. So, like, she just took her first nap, so now we can go out and explore for the rest of the day, and it'll be enjoyable for everybody.
And another thing, is give each other. You are in a tiny space. So give each other room. Go do different activities. Sometimes, like one of my things is skateboarding. Kristen likes to do yoga. So it's nice to be able to split that up, especially as a family. Everybody still needs to go have some time for themselves, and that's a big piece for us.
I think that's great advice, and I would second that with both of those. Yeah, not taking on too much, and giving each other time for yourselves. And so what's next for you guys? It's coming into the fall. I'd imagine it's that time of year when you start thinking about where you're going to spend your winters.
Yeah, so obviously we're from Florida, so we don't deal with winter. We don't deal with snow.
We are slowly making our way back to the south.
So we're actually we're going to follow the leaves pretty much right now, and then we're going to go Florida for the winter. Kind of just spend some time with friends and family. We're going to head back to Jacksonville for a little bit, Then we're going to go to a show actually in Orlando. And then the beginning of 2020, we're going to start to make our way west, and then kind of make the trek all the way up to Alaska for summer of 2020.
That sounds awesome. We did that about a year ago. We were in Florida in the winter and then made our way west, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, we wanted to go straight, beeline out west when we first finished the bus. We're like, hey, let's just take it easy. Let's go up the East Coast, because we both haven't really gone all the way up, and Nova Scotia was the ultimate goal. So that's kind of, we hugged the East Coast for the beginning of living on the bus, and then so next year we're gonna start heading out west, and we'll probably spend most of our time up there after that, because we don't really care to hang out too much more on the East Coast.
How was the East Coast? I hear a lot of people, foreigners we met on the road, saying it was terrible. I'd never go there again. Not in terms of the place itself, but just traveling in a large vehicle and trying to do it affordably.
It's not horrible, but it's definitely for staying places off grid and all that. It's not really that convenient. There's not a lot of places to boondock on the East Coast as opposed to the West Coast. But there's a lot of good stuff that we got to see out of it. It's been, what do you think, Kristen?
Well, it's been nice, but it's definitely, I think the West Coast is probably going to be a lot better of an experience for this kind of lifestyle, just because there is that more of the public lands and the very scenic landscapes and the kind of stuff that you dream about experiencing when you live in a bus. I'm glad we went to Nova Scotia because it was beautiful there, and that's kind of what I imagine the West Coast will be like.
Yeah, and that was and the thing on the East Coast, I guess this is the biggest thing, is weather is always kind of crazy on the East Coast. One day it's 80 degrees, and the next day it's freezing. So that's kind of hard in a bus sometimes, because you're trying to plan out. We're always trying to stay and follow 70 degrees and sunny. So, West Coast or the East Coast is always kind of a little bit crazy with weather, no matter where you're at on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's a challenge that you wouldn't expect when all of a sudden, I think we had maybe 1 or 2 days of rain in the last 3 months, and then all of a sudden we've been in Bend, Oregon, and it's kind of like the fall and the weather has turned, and we've had 5 days of rain. Fortunately, our friends are looking after us here and putting us up in a home, which has been really nice. But when you're dealing with rain or snow, we were dealing with snow in the winter because we wanted to, chasing a little bit of snow, but it can be really uncomfortable, especially when you have a little one that, you live mostly an outside lifestyle and you don't appreciate how much the weather dictates what you can do.
So true. And like you were saying with the little one too, obviously that's our main focus. So, we'll figure it out to make sure that she's comfortable, and it's just finding the right conditions. Yeah. So that's why at least coming out west will be a little nicer.
I'm excited for you guys. I had done a lot of traveling out here in another life, and I didn't really take the time to slow down and see everything. And, just with your guys' travel style and what you're able to capture and share on your videos, y'all have just such a blast out here, and there's just endless places to check out. It's you could spend a lifetime driving around out here and never get bored.
Oh man, yeah, I'm excited, and we'll have to get some good references from you on some hot spots that we'll have to go visit for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know, north of Vancouver Island, we had such a blast out there, but I'd say going to Alaska is going to be awesome. Yeah, we're excited. Cool. Well, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to share? I mean, I think one thing that we always struggle with is, people kind of thinking that because you live in this bus or on the road, it's a vacation. Do you find that at all, people's perspective, or, what would you like to share if somebody had seen some of your YouTubes and well,
definitely you're going to run into, especially if you're putting your adventures on the internet, you're going to run into some internet trolls who either say you're the trust fund baby or you're homeless, or I don't know, they're just miserable people trapped in their very mundane life, and their joy is to make you think that you're crazy for living in a bus or that you're doing something wrong because you're actually enjoying your life. And my advice is just ignore those people and try not to read the negative comments or even listen to them. If you're if this is what you really want to do it. And if your parents are telling you you're crazy or you're wasting your life, ignore them, because they come from a different generation where you go to work and you save for retirement, and then after you retire, then you get to actually enjoy your life. And we've met so many people who are like, man, I wish that I wouldn't have done it like that, because when you're 60, 70 years old, you can't really enjoy things the way that you can when you're in your early 20s.
Yeah.
Late. Early 30s.
What that guy say to us at the gas station the other day? You guys are too young to know you can't do this.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But that's one of the things. If you want to do it, just make it happen for anybody out there. Because if you just commit to it, just follow through, and the experiences are better than anything by far, because you'll remember those experiences and you learn a lot from that. So.
And do you think pushing through this as a challenge? I mean, I can tell you, building out a bus and doing it with kids is not like for the faint of heart. And do you think this has helped you to push through any kind of boundaries you might have had on yourselves to be able to take on more and dream bigger and feel like, you're choosing the way you want to live your life and where it's heading?
Yeah, definitely. I think now that we've done this, I believe that we can do anything. Like, we have some more kind of crazy ideas for the future, and they don't really even feel that crazy to us anymore, because it's just like, we live in a bus and we're traveling the country full time with a baby and a dog. Like, we can do anything that we put our mind to. And
Kristen, would you have felt like that before you got on the bus?
I think that I would have I'm more of the, what do you call me?
The dreamer?
I'm the dreamer, and Will's the realist. Like,
that's for sure.
He's always telling. So I think
he's like, just put a wall up right there. I'm like, that's a lot more than just putting a wall up.
I think if anything, it's helped Will be able to realize that things are more possible than you think you are. Like, you don't have to put up metaphorical walls on everything that seems crazy just because you were like grown up and society told you that it wasn't the way things were done.
I think that's great. Would you agree with that, Will?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Kristen's been, she is the dreamer and I'm the realist, but at the same time, she's really helped me take the extra plunge, like from doing this. She was the one that actually helped push me to start, doing video stuff for a living. She's the one that helped with that. So without a doubt, this has been awesome, and it's pushed us to the next level.
That's awesome to hear, and I think that a lot of people that might be listening to this are hopefully on the edge of some big decision in their life, and they probably have kids, and it's really fucking hard to do it. And part of the show is to just listen to people like yourselves to say, hey, we did this. It was really hard, but like now we feel like we can do anything. And I think that's my whole goal for the Rewilding Parenthood podcast, is that people can get out of the confines that they put around themselves because it's so hard, and thinking that they're limited because of the norms that our society places on us and especially as families. And so I'm glad to hear that this was a realization for you all from the lifestyle that you're living.
Yeah, so true. I agree with you 100% on what you just said. Mm-hmm. So that is really, getting out of the norm. It's all this is totally possible.
Yeah, you only get one life, so make sure you're doing what you want to do with it, not what society tells you to do.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time so much. If you wanted to send anybody anywhere online, where could we follow your journeys?
So on all of our social platforms, we're mainly on Instagram and YouTube. We post stuff on YouTube weekly, but it's at #1bus, and Juan is JUAN. So at #1bus on all those platforms, and we have a handful of people that reach out to us on a daily basis about families and whatnot. We love trying to answer questions and, try to make it possible for them to do the same thing.
Yeah, their videos are amazing and super inspirational and really informing. So I'm speaking to the audience here, but I should be speaking to you. Your videos are. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're super impressed, and we're actually we just made a little video last night, so we were checking out your guys' work, and And yeah, it's great. It's like it just makes everything feel so fun and real, and I think that's hard to capture in a way. So I'm always impressed when I see a new video and how well you've captured, everything that goes into living on the road.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we try to document it all, so it'll be fun to watch in the future.
Cool, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to crossing paths somewhere, sometime in the future.
Yeah, we're excited. We're definitely going to do it. We're going to have a good time, and we'll have to meet you in Mexico.
We are planning to stay for 6 months in this little town, so if you guys, seriously, if you're like, let's take a break from the bus, like we're hoping to rent a house and probably Airbnb the bus to hopefully pay for the house that we want to stay in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be there. So come on down.
We are so about it. We love it, and we love Mexico. I go down to Leon and Guanajuato like once a year, maybe sometimes twice a year, to go work with some of the orphanages down there. But that's pretty cool. It's just such a cool area. I just love Mexico in general.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Well, sweet. We'll tell the family we said hello, and yeah, we'll just stay in touch.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
See ya.
Be safe.
All right.
Ciao.
That was episode 3 of Families on the Road, our 4th season of the Rewilding Parenthood podcast. Number One Bus can be found on Instagram and YouTube. I definitely recommend checking out their YouTube stuff. They do an incredible job putting these videos together and sharing the details of their life and all the tricks and tips they've learned along the way. So hopefully you don't have to make the same mistakes they did. But if you're anything like me, you can watch all the YouTube videos you want and you'll still make those same mistakes. But hopefully you're a bit smarter than I am. Anyways, thank you, Will and Kristen. Check those guys out online. Next week, we are going to have a dream worth chasing. These folks, they cashed it all in for a year on the road in their RV, traveling around Northern Europe and continental Europe as well. So super fun story. They were only on the road for a year, but I think they really, really enjoyed it. And they also talk a lot about their transition into it and what it's been like to just get a taste of that freedom and how it could affect their lifestyles moving forward. So make sure you come back next week to check that out. In the meantime, if you like what you hear, as always, please consider leaving us a review or a rating on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out to reach new ears out there in this time when people are, maybe looking for a new point of view on this crazy world that we live in. Rewilding Parenthood has sound and editing by Mercedes Riva, and the music is by Thomas Tyrell. And last, feel free to follow us over on Instagram or YouTube or wherever I'm sure you're already following us if you're listening to this podcast, but please subscribe and check us out at Afuera Vida if you want to learn some more about each of our guests and see some of their photos. Most of them all take stunning photography. So have a great week, everyone. I hope to have you back next week for the next episode. Thank you so much. Adios.